Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I hope you guys have subscribed already so you never miss a video. So today we will be discussing Decolonizing the Mind by Ngugi wa Thiong'o. So let's get first introduced with this author. Uh, Ngugi wa Thiong'o is a renowned Kenyan writer and academic, celebrated for his profound impact on African literature and his advocacy for linguistic and cultural decolonization. Born on January 5, 1938, in Kenya, Ngugi has authored numerous novels, plays, and essays that explore the themes of colonialism, identity, and social justice. Ngugi's literary career began with his first novel, Weep Not Child, 1964, which was the first East African novel written in English to be published. His subsequent works, including The River Between and A Grain of Wheat, further established him as a leading voice in African literature. His novel, Petals of Blood 1977, is often considered his masterpiece, blending political and social commentary with rich storytelling. He is also known for his contribution to the Gikuyu language and his efforts to promote African languages in literature. In 1977, he decided to write exclusively in Gikuyu, his mother tongue, to resist linguistic imperialism. His decision led to the publication of Devil on the Cross 1980, which became a significant work in African literature. Beyond his literary works, he has been a vocal advocate for cultural and political liberation in Africa. His essays and public speeches often address the impact of colonialism and the importance of reclaiming African identity. He has also been involved in various educational and cultural initiatives promoting the use of African languages in literature and education. Ngugi wa Thiong'o's contribution to literature and his advocacy for cultural and linguistic decolonization has made him a pivotal figure in African and world literature. His works contribute to inspire and challenge readers to think critically about history, identity, and social injustices. Now, let's get introduced to the text for today and be mindful that we will be discussing only first two chapters of this text, so keep that in mind. Now, let's get introduction for this text. This is a collection of essay published in 1986 which explore and examines the complex relationship between language, culture, and power in post-colonial Africa. He argues that language is not just a means of communication but also a carrier of culture and tool of power. His work emphasizes the need for African writers to embrace their native languages as a means of reclaiming their cultural identity and resisting the lasting impacts of colonialism. Now, let's discuss the core concepts discussed in first two chapters of this text. So, the first is language and identity. Ngugi wa Thiong'o emphasizes the intrinsic link between language and cultural identity. He argues that language is not just a tool for communication, but also a carrier of culture, traditions, and values. When colonial powers imposed their languages on African societies, they effectively disrupted and diminished the cultural identities of these communities. The colonized people began to see their language and, by extension, their cultures as inferior. He urges African writers and intellectuals to reclaim their cultural heritage by writing in their native languages. This act of linguistic decolonization is essential for restoring the cultural pride and identity that colonialism sought to erode. So, in essence, what is he's trying to say is that he is trying to motivate people of Africa to write in their native languages to restore their cultural identity and their language, so that can decolonize their mind, their culture, and everything around them that have been imposed on them by the colonizing power. The next concept discussed in this text was colonial education. So, the colonial education system prioritized European languages and literature, marginalizing African languages and cultural expression. This system perpetuated the idea that African languages were inadequate for intellectual and academic discourse. Ngugi critiques this approach, highlighting how it alienated Africans from their own histories and traditions. He describes the colonial education system as a tool for indoctrination, aimed at creating a class of Africans who were culturally and intellectually aligned with the colonizers. This system undermined the self esteem and cultural pride of African students, making them feel inferior for speaking their native languages. He calls for an education system that values and incorporates African languages and culture. The third concept discussed was the role of literature. He sees literature as a powerful tool for cultural resistance and renewal. He argues that African literature should reflect the authentic experiences, struggles, and aspirations of African people. Writing in African languages allow for a more accurate and nuanced portrayal of these experiences. He criticizes the legacy of African writers to use colonial languages, which often limits their ability to fully capture the complexities of African life. He believes that literature written in African languages can serve as a means of reconnecting with the cultural roots and inspiring a sense of pride and resistance among readers. Literature becomes a vehicle for reclaiming history and identity. Now we will be discussing the last concept discussed in the first two chapters of this text. So, the last one is cultural bomb. So, introduces the concept of cultural bomb, a metaphor for the systematic destruction of people's belief in their own culture and identity by colonial powers. The cultural bomb works by eroding confidence in native cultures, promoting colonizers' culture as superior, and fostering a sense of inferiority among the colonized. So, what he's saying here is that this cultural bomb is a metaphor where the colonizers make the colonized people feel that their own language, their own culture is inferior, and making the colonizers' language and culture more superior than the native culture and identities. This cultural disintegration makes it easier for the colonizers to control and manipulate the colonized societies. So essentially, cultural bomb is a way of controlling the colonized societies, is a power tool. So Ngugi explains that the cultural bomb is a powerful and psychological warfare designed to weaken the resolve of the colonized to resist. By devaluing their own culture and identity, the colonized become more susceptible to domination. He advocates for cultural and linguistic decolonization in a way to diffuse the cultural bomb and restore a sense of dignity and self worth to African societies. So, what was the central message that the author was trying to give? So, the central message was the necessity of linguistic and cultural decolonization for African societies. He argues that language is not just a tool for communication but also a carrier of culture, identity, and history. This imposition of colonial languages by European powers led to a deep seated cultural alienation and loss of identity among African societies. He advocates for the use of African language in literature, education, and everyday life as a means of reclaiming cultural heritage and resisting the lingering impacts of colonialism. By writing in African languages, he believes that African writers can authentically represent their experience, reconnect with their roots, and contribute to the broader struggle of their culture and political liberation. So, in conclusion, this text is a compelling critique of the colonial impact on African languages and culture. Through a series of essays, he highlights the critical role of language in shaping identity and cultural consciousness. He argues that the colonial imposition of European languages served as a tool of domination, creating a sense of inferiority among Africans and serving their connection to their own cultures and histories. The author's call for linguistic and cultural decolonization is a powerful reminder of the importance of reclaiming one's heritage and identity. By embracing African language, he envisions a future where African literature can thrive, reflecting the true diversity and richness of African experiences. His work serves as an enduring call to action for African writers, intellectuals, and societies to resist cultural imperialism and to celebrate and persevere their linguistic and cultural legacies. So, with this, we have concluded the first two chapters of this text. I hope you got the general idea what the author was trying to say in the first two chapters of this text. Also, I would like to correct my pronunciation about the author's name. It's Ngugi wa Thiong'o. I think I have mispronounced it the whole video, so do correct yours. If you need notes for this, a detailed notes for your examination, I'm giving it away for just ₹20, and if you need it, do DM me on Instagram for that on our official page. I hope you like this. Please share this with your friends and do subscribe the channel. I will see you in next video.